All right. I'm Joe Turner, and this is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. It is the most influential local government podcast in America. And with me today is Jeff Niten. He's the city manager for Mountlake, Terrace, Washington, and he's with us today. His staff reached out and said, "Hey, we are putting together a Citizens Academy, and I'd like to talk to you about it." And I said, "Hell yeah, come on, let's talk about it," because coincidentally, a couple weeks ago in my LinkedIn feed, I saw some chatter about with some city managers talking about starting a Citizen Academy for their community and looking for some feedback. And I thought, what a perfect time to have you on the show, Jeff. So it was very fortuitous for you and your staff to reach out to me to talk about coming on the podcast. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun. I listened to almost all the episodes, and it's a great time. A lot of information for all of us across the country.
Thank you. So Jeff, why don't you quickly introduce yourself, give the folks a little flavor for your background and how you got into this madness?
It is. So background, I was a land use planner, started kind of at the ground floor right after graduating from college. And when I was in college, I didn't even know what a planner was. So it was kind of a whirlwind getting started. But got started doing that, did that for about 15 years, rising up through the various ranks, and then became a community development director. And then about 8 years ago, I got my first city manager's job in Shelton, Washington. And then about 3 years ago, I transitioned over here to Mountlake Terrace as the city manager. And it's been a wild ride, but it's a lot of fun.
Now, I don't know, honestly, how often a planner works their way up to the ranks to become a city manager. I don't think it's terribly a common track, but what was the impetus for you to join the city management ranks? Like, what did you see? What did you want to do? I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, I was always interested in land use planning. One of the reasons that drew me to the profession to begin with was maps. I was fascinated with maps. I always had a globe in my room growing up. I had a lot of fun doing that. But I think what really drew me to it was the people that I worked for. I saw how they conducted themselves. I saw the important decisions that they were making, and more important, I think they explained why they were making the decisions that they were making. And it's like, that makes sense when you have that broader view, and I enjoy that more broad view of overall city government.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I don't want to poo-poo planning or anything like that. I know there's a lot of complexities and got some diverse personalities you got to work with and so forth and so on. But when you get in the city management ranks, no day's ever like the one before it, right? I mean, it's just a different beast every day you wake up.
Every day, like just before we started talking, I was explaining the intricacies of REIT funding, real estate excise tax funding, and where all those dollars go. So it's bouncing back and forth and having that broad range of things you get to work on every day and think about every day, I think is what's exciting to me. I think it's keeps me interested.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a fair generalization to make. I will tell you, it seems like by and large, generally, planners tend to be more on the introverted side, or not necessarily people's people, so to speak, right? And when you get in that city manager chair, it's definitely a position where you need to be, even if you're not an extrovert, you kind of need to be or pretend to be an extrovert, right? And deal with the different personalities and interact with people. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions for those who are maybe coming up through the ranks of planning and community development about what it's like to step into the chair, or just some things to be mindful of for those who might be kicking around the idea of wanting to become a city manager at some point?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. One, you're right when you say that it's not extremely common. I mean, I know several folks that are city managers that came up the same way I did, but some of the introversion, applying codes, looking at maps, that does exist in the profession. But there are also people that are want to engage the public, which is a big part of the process, right? We
Yes.
have meetings and all the town halls and everything we can talk to people about. I think the biggest thing is keeping the broader perspective in mind, right? We as planners, there's not necessarily a set of rules for everything. And then you have parts of the professional world that are, this is what good community building looks like. Generally, those types of people go into consulting. When you're working in a government sector, you always know that you have to present your plans to an elected council or an elected county commissioner or what have you. So you have to be willing to incorporate ideas from everywhere, which I think is a great asset for the city management profession because you hear from a lot of people in the planning world, a lot of different people with different ideas, but that at least doubles when you step into the city manager world. But keeping those broader perspectives and goals in mind. There's not one right way to get there. There is a way that works for your city and your community to get there, and that a city 20 miles away may have a different opinion, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things I find really fascinating about the city management profession is how so many people get there by different avenues, right? And different ways of getting there. And when I look at the planners or planning departments or whatnot, there are so many elements of that position that have or prepare somebody for the city management chair when you're talking about just the citizen input and the high profile nature some of these projects can be. And I mean, you could have, I mean, a lot of times these planning meetings are more contentious and hostile and volatile than an actual city council meeting, right?
Yeah.
And so it prepares you really well in that regard. And then you look at, like, a lot of times you got, especially in some of the larger cities, you'll see engineer types who will rise up to like a public works director, and they might end up migrating up to a city manager position. And there's a similar sort of knocks on engineers when it comes to that lack of people skills or whatnot. And then you have, like, the police chiefs are more increasingly becoming city managers, but they also have a black and white sort of often viewpoint on things because by nature of their profession. And so I find it really fascinating when you look at these different career tracks within local government as they funnel up to the city management chair, is the flexibility an individual has to have to take often what is a black and white approach for much of what you do on a day-to-day basis, but then somehow be malleable or flexible and see those shades of grays when you migrate into the city management chair, because there's just so many competing interests and pressures from the electeds and stakeholders. And I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, I do too, and I really think no matter what the profession is, you have to be able to work with people, listen to different people, and then thread that needle. Right? Is what are those competing interests? I often find, and something that I try to build into the culture of the places where I work, that people in city government, county government specifically, I've never worked at the state level, but I assume it's much the same. If you do things exactly by the book, black and white, you can't get in trouble. But if you do things exactly by the book, there's a lot of times you're not able to find a way to get to yes, right?
Yes, yes.
Finding those ways to get to yes while still adhering to the intent of the adopted codes and things like that, I think is probably the biggest skill set for somebody looking to advance their career into either planning director or city manager or what have you. And I mean, come on, we're a little bit more extroverted than the engineers, right?
Amen. Amen. That's a good point. Good point. It's funny you raise that point though about finding a way to yes and the black and white aspect of it, because if you're a city manager and there's a black and white, or there's the right way and the wrong way to do things, you might find your way to the unemployment line pretty quickly because of just the way things shake out. And again, that's one of the challenges of the beauty, the art of the profession, as opposed to the science of the profession, is knowing how to stand by your morals and your ethics and what have you, but also being malleable enough to accommodate the dynamic nature of what it is that you do on a daily basis, right? I mean, and all the competing interests. While we're having this discussion here, I think it's a nice segue to talk about why we're on this podcast anyway, right? Because we're talking about you wanting to start or you starting a citizens academy, and now you're entering your second year. And I don't steal your thunder, but this idea of educating your population, your residents, about how local government works. I mean, it's a complex beast that most people, I believe, um, it's whether it's naivete or just sheer ignorance or whatnot, the average person has no clue how their government works. I mean, the it's become so complex, not from their doing, right. I mean, I feel bad for the average citizen trying to reconcile. Okay, is this a federal issue? Is this a county issue? Is this a special district issue? Is this a park issue? It's we ask a lot of our citizens in this country nowadays when they're just trying to go to work, pay their bills, put food on the table, and spend time with their family. So why don't we talk a little bit more about your desire to start the Citizens Academy and unpack that for us, this journey that you're on?
Yeah, so well, a couple of things there. One, I interest in local government. When the only time people think about local government typically is they got to pay a traffic ticket or they have to come in and pay a utility bill or that kind of thing. I mean,
Usually
yeah,
not the most pleasant interaction, right? Of some kind.
exactly. And I always heard growing up, pretty often enough that it's still ingrained in me to this day that you can't fight City Hall, right? And City Hall is this intimidating place. It's a black box where money goes in. Sometimes projects come out, and nobody knows how that happens. Um, and I didn't know, like I mentioned before, I had no idea what a land use planner was before I was in college and started my internship. So you got to learn about those things, but how do you get people excited and engaged about it, and how it affects them, right? How it affects everyday people. And my idea, well, it wasn't really my idea. I'm not going to take credit for it. These types of things have existed in other places, but I really thought it was important, particularly here in Mountlake Terrace, because people are concerned about property tax rates. People are concerned about their water rates. All those things are going up as they are for everybody. And I wanted to peel back the curtain a little bit and make it so people did not find City Hall intimidating. People found City Hall welcoming.
Yeah.
And not just, coming into the building. I mean, we'll go out to see people. We'll go out to visit businesses. We'll go out to neighborhood block parties and just talk to people. Really, the idea is about humanizing people that work for the city government. We're your neighbors. We play on the same baseball team as your kid, go to the same schools, all that kind of stuff. We're just people making the best decisions that we can. I find when people know you and have had a conversation with you, even when there comes to a point of disagreement, they're going to understand what you're trying to do is what you think is the best for the community. And really, it's just that. It's meeting people where they are and talking to them and explaining to them, we're not the big bad government. We're actually trying to do what's best for the community next year, a decade from now, and 20 years from now.
Yeah, I try not to inject sort of my political biases and things like that into the podcast and my content because I want to be as neutral as I can. But I also feel like there's appropriate times where I got to either be transparent about those biases, or I think there's contextually relevant to bring it up. And as somebody who started primarily on the activist political side, I've said before I'm right of center politically, so I have a conservative, naturally a conservative viewpoint on government, for efficient, limited government and things of that sort of nature. And for many many years, while I was wearing that private citizen hat and railing against the largesse of government, so to speak, you would feel like at times government was just disconnected from you and that they forgot that they're working for the taxpayers. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is to talk about the Citizens Academy, is because I do think it's intrinsically and inherently important that we in government constantly reorientate our mindset to this idea, right? That we do work for the people. I mean, it's easy to lose track of that. And it's easy for us to get stuck in the tunnel vision of like, hey, I got to get these projects done. And sometimes, let's be honest, some citizens can be cantankerous and they can be disruptive and they can be impediments to what we're trying to do, right? And for the greater good, right? And we're on a mission to, we all enter this profession because we want to do good things, right? But there could be a natural sort of conflict there. And so I love the fact that you're doing the Citizens Academy because at its very base level, it's connecting people and government. And I think that is such a really an issue in our society right now that it's sorely lacking, right? There's so much tension and friction at all levels of government. And we have this growing distrust. Now, historically speaking, residents have had a very positive viewpoint of local government, right? But I fear that that's going to start trending downwards as we see this decay at the state and federal level with all this division. And that's why I think it's very important that we have these, citizen type academies that you're rolling out here in Mountlake Terrace.
I see the point there, and one of the things that we don't want to be is disconnected from the people that we serve. One
Right.
of the things we're talking about, community engagement initiatives for the Community Academy. We have several others. And one of the things I tell people is we're going to spend the dollars that we're entrusted with, because that's how I see it. We're entrusted with these dollars to do the best we can for the community. But that doesn't mean that I know automatically what's best for the community. In particular, is I tell people Look, I've been in government 25 years at one level or another. And when I see a problem, I'm going to address it in ways that I've experienced in the past and that I've seen work. That doesn't mean that there isn't somebody out there with a great idea that I would have never thought of because I see a nail. Here's the hammer I use to fix that nail. Is there a better way to do it? Maybe, but we have to be opening to listening to people to get those ideas. If we're shut off, we know better than you. We're the professionals. One, that turns people off, and I think causes distrust in city government. But two, I think that you're shutting yourself off for some great opportunities, which we should take. And we should be open to that. The not invented here syndrome does not exist at Mountlake Terrace City Hall.
I like that. I've never heard that expression. I guess that's a good opportunity to kind of segue into a conversation, being open to new ideas. I mean, obviously the Citizens Academy isn't a new idea created by Jeff Knighton or Mountlake Terrace or whatnot. So I'm kind of curious, can you unpack how you guys put this program together and what was the, I guess, sort of just kind of walk us through the, from 0 to 1, so to speak, of getting this program from idea or inception to launching it last year. And maybe now would be also be a good time to talk about, just do a quick overview of what kind of participation you had last year and what kind of, you're happy with the turnout and what have you. And we can kind of delve into how it even came into be.
Sure. So first, when I first got here, I started in April of 2023. So I've been on the job for about almost 3 years now. There was, I almost want to call it apathy, right? Where I think you see that in a lot of communities, particularly suburban communities. We're 12 miles north of downtown Seattle, where people get in their car in the morning, they leave to go to work, they come home at 5:30 at night if they're lucky. They don't want to come back out. There's not really, it's a place to sleep. Um,
You're talking to a SoCal boy, Jeff, born and
yeah.
raised, so I know exactly what you mean. I've talked about that the Southern California sort of everyone's on their own little island
Yep.
situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I grew up in SoCal too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. The you know I wanted people to be engaged in the community and have a stake in it, have an interest in it, right? And I want to make sure that they understand that City Hall's here to make sure that they have clean water, make sure that their toilet flushes, but it's also a sense of place, a unique sense of place. It is a unique place. We have an interesting history here. So invest in the community, and that pays dividends all around. I mean, from recruiting, very getting more difficult by the day, to economic development. You create that place, that sense of pride. Not that people didn't have pride in Mountlake Terrace before, but you wanted it visible, right? Not
Well,
just
I don't. I don't mean to step on you there, Jeff, and I don't, we can edit this out or you can tiptoe around it, but my recollection is that Mount Lake Terrace has had a little bit of some tense, maybe some friction or some division in a not too distant past before you came aboard. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, and I'm transparent and open. We can talk about anything. I would frame it as, yeah, there was some, not necessarily division, because going back to that apathy part, right? But there were problems. We as a city, and I say we even though I wasn't here, did not close our financial books. We did not submit our financial statements. We didn't have anything audited for 3.5 years or so before I got here. We're finally caught up, which is a fantastic accomplishment for our finance team and the
Yes.
entire team here at City Hall. Very proud of that. But when you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, why would people have any trust, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's why we are held to such a high standard, and it's so important to
And we
live
should
up to
be.
that standard. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And,
Uh,
and a quick sidebar: I'm not an expert on Washington local government, Jeff, but you know, uh, when you talk about an audit, yes, they're important, but by and large, my understanding of audits, especially out here in Kansas, where my city management career has been, is there's a huge misnomer that audits somehow are doing this. Everyone thinks like an annual audit is like this forensic sort of a review of your finances or whatnot, and they're going to catch all, any fraud or any shenanigans, and that's not really what an audit is. And I think that's probably good. If it's, I see you're nodding your head, so I assume it's the same in Washington. And I really think that's probably a great topic to talk about in a Citizens Academy. Like, what exactly is an annual audit?
Yep. Well, and you're right. I mean, that's what those they look at. A couple of different programs and make sure everything lines up, and make sure there's no major, huge transfers right at the end of the year. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But by and large, it's not. It's not a forensic audit. I think you called it, and that's probably the right term. Is going through every line. I mean, that doesn't happen every year. But it is important, I think, for people to be able to rely on the financial statements. But more to the point, I think in the context of the Citizens Academy, if we're not doing what we're supposed to do, but we're out there applying regulations to you, I think there's a disconnect there. If somebody does a building permit, we're not doing what we're supposed to do on this end, but we're requiring you to jump through all these hoops. There is a disconnect there, and I think that feeds into the kind of the distrust you were talking about, which
Yeah.
I don't want to see happen.
Absolutely. So we talked about how you're not inventing the wheel here when you're starting a Citizens Academy, but do you have any clue as far as how prevalent the Citizen Academy programs are across Washington? And did you base the original concept for last year's, inaugural run off of another city or anything else? Or was it an amalgamation of, looking at different communities and seeing what they were doing? Can you walk us through that dynamic of creating and the structure and the curriculum, so to speak, for the class?
Yeah. So the first, you have Citizens Academies. There's 281 cities in Washington State. Over the last 5 years, I've heard of maybe 10, maybe.
Oh,
And there
wow.
may be,
Okay.
yeah, and there may be more than that. I just, it
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
But we really invented ours out of whole cloth. We didn't take it from anywhere else. The kind of the genesis behind it, and I was really surprised at this, but the genesis behind it was to invite people in, make them comfortable at City Hall so they know who to contact, that kind of thing. But the appetite for it was amazing. We do not record these sessions, so it's not something that you can, watch at home if you wanted to. But we tried to include a little bit of exclusivity to the program. We held 30 open spots. First group, I think we probably had 40 or so applicants. We took 35 of those, and we took a little bit more because, over the process.
Attrition. Yeah.
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 The appetite for it was amazing. That first class last year filled up in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah. So when you invite people in, hey, learn about what we're doing and why we're doing it, which I think is the more important piece. People want to know. The great thing that we did was we held a spot open for a high school student, and we wanted to make sure a high school student participated, if at all possible, if we could generate that interest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, again, part of the recruiting pathway. Nobody knows what city government does. There's all kinds of careers open to folks that are interesting.
I really like that angle, Jeff. I never even dawned on me that you might have a high school representative, but that's such a huge, you're right. I mean, because the average high schooler has absolutely zero clue what opportunities that exist in their local government. And,
Right.
and I will say, hey, shout out to your team for getting the word out, because I mean, you don't just get the slots signed up in 2 weeks because carrier pigeons are being sent out far and wide, right? So I don't know, Sienna Spencer Markles, she's I think running point on this program for you. I'm not sure if she's involved in the publicity or marketing, but shout out to her and your teams. That's an amazing accomplishment to get that kind of not only turnout but interest level.
The interest level, and Sienna does a lot of work on that front. So does our deputy city manager, Carolyn Hope. But really, on our side, internally, and I'll give you the rundown here in a second. But internally, we included just about all employees, right? I want the folks that are at the front desk taking utility payments to be talking to people during the classes, because that's how you build relationships, right? And you involve the entire team and they all put something together. It's also a bit of a team building exercise.
Yeah, Jeff, we had a pre-screen interview where we kind of got to know each other a little bit before we did this interview, and I wanted to bring up a couple of points that I raised in that call, and just for the edification of the audience here.
Mhm.
The first thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to these citizen academies is because I think obviously in the macro sense they're great, but one of the things that I find troubling is not the right word. I guess frustrating is that they're not very scalable, right? They're a small cohort of individuals, and you put a lot of time and energy into this small cohort. And I'm kind of wondering, how did you guys, as a staff, as a team, when you were even setting about starting this, over a year ago, might have been even 2 years ago. I don't know how long it took you guys to get the program created, right, from actual inception. But what kind of conversations did you guys have about scalability, and is this the best use of our time, and the bang for the buck? Because you just talked a second ago about, hey, Joe, we don't record this. We're not sharing it for in the public because we want this exclusivity, which I get to a degree, but I also, it's like, well, man, but we live in a digital age where everything's scalable. Hell, you're in Seattle, right? You have all people know about scaling and being digital. So I'm just kind of curious what kind of internal dialogue you guys had about the high touch small cohort aspect of this program.
Yeah, so that was when we first started thinking about this program, designing it and then implementing it. That was one of the first challenges we came to was, why are we going to spend 40, 50, 60 hours of staff time or more, not only putting together materials for the class, but also actually giving the session.
Right.
Uh, you have people here late. The thing our team came down to, that was most important, was we want that one-on-one personal touch. So people know us, they can stop us on the street, they're not afraid to call us. But two, we wanted to create kind of an ambassador effect, right? So your neighbor is complaining about, a pothole that hasn't been fixed yet, or why was the traffic light out, or any one of the number of things that people are concerned about. If the person that goes through the academy can talk to three neighbors on their street or four neighbors on their street, one person in the grocery store checkout line, and say, hey, these people are really easy to talk to. They're really approachable. Email them. They will get back to you. Or call them or stop by. Somebody stops by our front desk, somebody on the leadership team is going to be available to them if they need it, right? So we want to have that personal touch. We're a community of about 25,000 people. So having that ability to have that high touch, one-on-one personal connection is incredibly important in a smaller community.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to what you just said a second ago about, creating ambassadors through the program. Does your program have any sort of direct sort of interaction with the citizens who are participating, encouraging them to go out and be ambassadors, or encouraging them to go out and meet with their neighbors, or is that are they left to their own devices, I guess?
Yeah, we have what we do is we encourage people, one, at the end of the program last year, and we'll continue to do this, ask for feedback on how we could do it better, right, from the people that have gone through it. And two, for them to encourage their neighbors to sign up for the next one. Share what you've learned here. They walk away with a big, thick binder that covers operational aspects of each department. Go through it. If you have any questions about it, you know who we are and where we are. And talk to your neighbors about the things that you learned and thought were interesting, or things you didn't know about beforehand.
Would you mind sharing what maybe some of the main takeaways from the citizen feedback were last year that resonated with you and your staff?
Yeah. Well, there was a couple surprises. I guess not really surprises, but kind of perked my ears up a bit, right? One, people don't know how city governments are funded, and we have a 1%.
Wait, Jeff. What do you mean? Hold on. Aren't these the same folks who say, "I pay your salary, you work for me"? What do you mean they don't know how it's funded?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but we have a 1% cap on property taxes that can go up each year. Last year, and I'll just give you an example because I remember it so vividly. We increased the tax by 1%. Total revenue generation was from that for property tax $33,325.
Wow,
Uh,
that doesn't go very
inflation,
far, right?
no, inflation's a little bit more than that. People were surprised though it's 1%. Another thing they were surprised at, all of our infrastructure that's in the ground, whether water, sewer pipes, what have you, a lot of it was put in the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual life cycle of those those materials when they're in the ground for that long, they're going to have to be replaced, and that stuff is not cheap, especially now when construction costs and materials costs are going through the roof. One of the big things and themes through a lot of the community engagement activities we do is like, take a look at your property tax bill. You pay.
I know where you're going, brother. I know where you're going on this
Yeah,
because this is like,
right.
man, this is like oh gosh, this pisses me off so much as a city manager. But I know where you're going because the people
Yeah.
don't realize this. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, they don't. And it's you pay $7,000 a year, 3,500 every 2 months, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Of that, what comes to your city government is about $400. That's
Is that
it.
incredible? That's incredible,
It
right?
is, and people don't realize that. They're like,
They don't.
you got to be rich. We're paying you all this money. It's like, no,
No,
actually,
the school districts are rich. That's where the money always seems to go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Oh man.
people are surprised by that, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure, or when we did this community academy, finance, revenue, and expenditure is a big piece of it, right?
Yeah, that's
So
got to be a foundational building block for any citizen academy, I would think, right? Because that's
yeah,
just it's like I just did a podcast interview with Michael Patton. He's a Parks and Rec director for Riverbank, California, and he was talking about his gripe was that I don't give enough love to the Parks and Rec space on the podcast, and so he was a little defensive, a little protective or whatever. But
yeah,
he had a really cool like a way of describing how he views Parks and Rec, and he was like Um, obviously like your infrastructure, your streets, that's like your veins and, your arteries and stuff like that. And, we all know what the sewer represents and everything else. He's like, I think of Parks and Rec as being like the personality of your community, right? It's like that front facing aspect of your community. And it really gives off the vibe of, what this community is all about as a personality. And I thought that was really interesting. But what he said before that was he talked to sort of like the finance as sort of being like the central nervous system or the brain of the organization, right? And it's like at the end of the day, if you're don't have the dollars and cents right, you can't function, right?
mhm,
And that's why I just think that's such a huge important building block of any citizen academy is you got to articulate to the residents how you're funded, where those dollars and cents are coming from, and the challenges that you face with the tax structure that you have in your jurisdiction.
yeah, uh, absolutely right. I mean, yeah, if you don't have the dollars to maintain your parks, we have a terrific park system here and a wonderful recreation programming. I mean, I hear from people all the time that are older than me. Hey, I learned to swim in Mountlake Terrace. We have a pavilion pool, that kind of thing.
Love it.
Well, yeah, that pool is also 70 years old and is costing more to maintain. You know how much a new one's going to be? It's going to be $100 million,
Are
right?
you kidding me? For a whole complex like that? That's oh
Yeah.
gosh. Oh.
So those are the things, and people are surprised by that. It's like you can't just open up a pool. I mean,
What,
you know,
what's 100 million divided by a $400 a year tax bill? What's that?
exactly,
That's all. I need a lot of
exactly.
people there.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. The other question or issue that I raised up in the call was this aspect that I believe that the primary interaction or primary way for individuals to interact with their government, their local government, seems to be in this council meeting dynamic, right? And the council meeting, depending on where you're at, what the local culture is or vibe in your jurisdiction, oftentimes a citizen might get up there and make a public comment for 3 minutes or whatever the case is, and the electeds might have a policy where like, hey, we don't respond or we're not gonna engage in a back and forth. We're just going to let you hear what you have to say. And I think it seems like it becomes almost a naturally or directionally sort of forces us into a combative sort of dynamic between government and its citizens, right? So even if you're a citizen and you just want to ask a question, a good faith question, because you're genuinely curious, it's like city council meetings aren't really the best venue to do it. But yet, if you what else do you have, right? I mean, outside of sending an email to an elected official, and let's be honest, it's not like the city manager wants to meet with every citizen of the city one on one all day long. That can't happen, right? So, what I really like about the citizen academy dynamic is I think it really gives an opportunity for citizens who are wanting to act in good faith and learn more about their government to interact with staff in a non-combative way that doesn't seem like someone's trying to, blindside somebody or play gotcha at the dais or whatnot. Can you speak to that a little bit and what your thoughts are on what I'm trying to communicate there?
My thoughts kind of mirror that, right? One, I think it's important to talk to your community when you're not asking for something and they're not asking for something. It's just a conversation, right?
Nice. I
Uh,
love the way you put that.
yeah, I mean, we go out and we talk to people all the time. We talked a little bit earlier about planning, in the open houses. Well, we're asking people to come comment on something, right? These opportunities are or these sessions are an opportunity. I'm not asking you for anything. I don't need your comment. I don't need anything. You're not asking necessarily for anything, and we can just have a conversation about what's the priority in your life, right? What would make your quality of life better, which I think is incredibly valuable. As far as city council meetings, I mean, I agree. It's very formal. A lot of times people are in suits and ties, and they're sitting on a dais that's 3-4 feet above you, kind of looking down at somebody at the lectern, asking their question. And most councils don't. And in fact, we encourage councils not to interact with
That's
people
that's
during public
that's
comment.
correct. That's
You're
correct.
right. Yeah. So, and people that make public comment, I get back to them. I always get back to them, or I have one of our department heads here get back to them and answer their question.
But to step on you here, Jeff, I think one of the reasons why a lot of city managers encourage electeds to not engage in that back and forth so often is because more often than not, the comments coming from that speaker tend to have a negative bent or a
Mhm.
combative sort of element to it, and no one's going to win. The electeds aren't going to win that battle. It's not going to be good for anybody. And so, but I think that's the point, right? That's kind of like the point we're making with this entire idea,
Yeah.
this conversation, is that if citizens only have one avenue to interact with their electeds, it's gonna naturally generate some of the negative, hostile comments because that's how human nature works, right? So, Jeff, last year you guys did your first year for the Citizens Academy. Can you give us a little bit of like a breakdown of the structure, the duration, the curriculum, and just kind of describe that for the audience?
Sure. So last year, first year we did it, we had it broken down into 6 sections, once a week for about 90 minutes, 2 hours each
Okay.
one. Each department would run through it.
Are these
There
a
were,
evening session or a
yeah,
weekend session, or okay, evening? Okay.
we did them in the evenings, usually starting 5:30, 6 o'clock, right in that time frame. This year we've expanded it to 8, and one of the reasons we did that was we had the entire city manager's office in one session. So we had myself, the deputy city manager, city clerk, communications, all those different types of functions. And it was just too much in one session to cover all those topics. My team was like, everybody asked you questions, and we only got like 2 minutes to present. It's like, okay, I
Yeah,
hear you.
yeah. The city manager can really suck the oxygen out of the room, right? Because you're naturally
Right.
that point person. Everyone's looking at you, and you're like, "Well, hey, there's my other teams here too." Which I
Yeah.
guess begs the question: are you at every single one of these sessions, or were you only at were you like the MC for every session, or were you only at the one designated session for your particular role, or how did you navigate that?
For me, I hosted the first session that focused on the city manager's office, and then I attended all the other ones, but really stayed in the back of the room because I wanted to give my team the opportunity to,
To shine?
shine, do
Yeah.
what they needed to do,
Okay.
and it went really well. I thought. So anyway, this year we broke it into 8. This first session this year is going to be on March 4th, and we're going to do them every Wednesday for 8 weeks. The first one is going to be city council and the city manager. That one, what I want is our council members, or what I'd like to see is our council members, several of them anyway, come and share their perspective on how policymaking happens. And how people can influence policy at City Hall, and then I'll talk about the things that I do, like same as I did last year. Kind of how I align all the departments and all the resources we have in order to achieve council goals, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The second one is really going to be everybody else in my office. That's HR, IT, comms, city clerk, those kind of functions, and explain how those things work. So people understand, what we do. What does the city clerk do? Who even knows what a city clerk is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And explain what she does. and making sure all our records are appropriate, and we've got all the public records requests done, all those other types of things. Third one is going to be finance, and that's one of the most fun ones. Each one of the departments, and they kind of turned it into a little bit of a competition, which I thought was great. So each of the departments is creating a game and trying to see who can get the most engagement for the people going through the program.
I like it. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and finance did a really good job with that. It's basically a lot of organizations have done it. Is how would you? Here's your dollar. How are you going to spend it?
Mm-hmm.
What's your priorities? But they also got to play Monopoly last year, which they're going to redo this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you do get a lot of engagement out of that. People get that competitive spirit, and want to win.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So talk about everything from budgeting to bonding to how you get your bond rating. What happens when the engineer's estimate is too low for a project, which never happens, right? Yeah. And then after that, we go into public works and the operations facility. What goes into that? Oh, you have to maintain that fleet of vehicles that you have. How do you do that optimally? You have to insure them. You have to do, all these pieces and parts.
You mean a vacuum truck is $800,000?
All right. Right, yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And you have to clean each catch basin once every 18 months to satisfy your NPDES permit, right? So all of those pieces and parts. But I want on the Public Works and Operations facility tour, I want them to meet the folks and talk to the folks that when the water main breaks at 3 a.m. when it's 35 degrees outside, these are the guys.
These are the heroes. These are the heroes saving the day. Yeah,
exactly. So I want them to meet those folks and see that.
You brought up a really great point that I hadn't thought about until just now when you talk about the permit, with the cleaning out the storm drains and what have you. Is it's a really good opportunity to also show the interconnected nature. And I use that word loosely, especially in today's day and age where it seems like every state legislature is just sort of hammering, home rule and local governments. But, whether it's these unfunded mandates or just, these massive mandates and regulation, it's a really great opportunity to illustrate the challenges that we face at the local level with the state and sometimes county burdens that are placed on us.
Yes, and you have that's one permit, right? And we have
just
a
one.
ton of them, just one. Have a ton of them through the state and through the federal level, all the way down through, depending on what area you're in, and that highlighting those things and why allocating those resources that we have in the budget to accomplish those things, it takes away from what else we're able to do, right? If it's we want to do, we have what's called a Terrace Summer Nights program. So it's movies and music in the park every week during the summer. Could we do more of those? Sure. But the resources, they're just not there. You have to meet your requirements for all these other permits. Our comprehensive plan, our planning system in Washington State, we have to update our comprehensive plans every certain number of years. So there's funding for that, but that funding is going away, right? But we're still required to do it. Funding from the state level, but we're still required to do it every 8 years, I believe.
With respect to your curriculum last year or this year, is there any sort of interactive component where the citizens are engaging off-site with local government, or you guys just basically go to like the council chambers and have a session for 2 hours, like a college lecture hall, and call it a wrap? I'm just kind of curious how that works.
No, I think that would bore the hell out of people. So
I agree.
Yeah. So like the first one, city manager's office, finance, those are all held in council chambers or police department training room, one or the other. The public works ops tour, they actually go out to the public works facility. They get to climb onto a Vector truck and see what that's like and how they operate. Our decantment pile, so you're keeping all the sediment out of the streams and all those things, and see everything that goes into that, which I think is important. The next one, public safety, we actually do in the PD, so they get a little bit of a tour, but they also get to see, police vehicles, SWAT vehicles, all the equipment. So that's a lot of fun for people. That was the highlight for last year. So,
well, sure. You're teeing this one up for me, buddy. You're teeing this one up because I got to ask: is there a Hangover-esque scene where residents get tased or get to tase the city manager in the face?
I was tased once. I will never be tased again if I can help it. Voluntarily. It wasn't an interaction. that I didn't have. It was kind of a training thing, not something that I did anything wrong. But you know how that goes.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I have a really silly question.
Yeah,
Do you provide food or any sort? What do you do as far as in the evening time? I assume you guys provide some sort of snacks or food
yeah,
or
yeah.
beverage. Like what's? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, anytime that you bring people out in the evening, you got to have food, snacks and beverages and that kind of thing. We usually do something nice, but not excessively. Like we don't get sandwiches for everybody, but we make sure that they have something to munch on.
yeah. And I may have covered this already, and I apologize if you answered and it kind of went through my brain or whatnot. But maybe we can touch on it again. What was your big learning experience from the last year that you're taking into this year? I know obviously you're expanding the sessions right from 6 to 8, and we covered that a little bit. But was there anything else that sort of, and you obviously you talked about people kind of being surprised or learning about the how government's funded and what have you. But were there any other sort of takeaways or things that really captured your attention or staff's attention from last year that that's influencing how you're doing it this year?
I think, and I may have mentioned, I don't know if I did, but the appetite for it. People want this. And I was really surprised because, city councils, I think generally everywhere I've been anyway, city and county commission meetings, that kind of thing. You've got two, three, four people that come to every meeting.
Yep. The STPs, as Sam Toll calls them, the same 10
yeah,
people or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah, you know who they are. You know what their concerns are. You know what they're going to make public comment about. I think when you open up city hall, city operations, things like that, there's an appetite to learn about it. That was the biggest thing that surprised me because I thought, we'll try this. We'll hold it for 30 people. We'll maybe get 15 responses, and maybe 5 or 6 will make it all the way through. No, we were slammed with people that really wanted to participate, and I think it showed. Last year we started out with 35, I think, and ended up at the end of the program we had 26 or 27 that went to just about every session. Maybe missed one, something
Yeah.
like that.
That's amazing. I mean, we are talking
Right.
about people who have busy lives. I mean, they got, husbands and wives and kids and I mean, I mean, six 2-hour sessions, 8 2-hour sessions, that's not a weak commitment on the part of the resident. I mean, that's a lot.
No, and yeah, that's what I think that was the biggest surprise for us is, and really made us, enthusiastic and energetic about doing it because people want to know, and we want to demystify it, right?
Yeah.
Can't remember if we were already recording or not, but we were talking about, City Hall is seen as this black box where tax dollars go in. Sometimes projects come out, and who the hell knows what happens in there? It should not be that way. Yeah, it should come in, see why.
What you guys are showing in Mountlake Terrace is, one of the common refrains. I've made this argument numerous times is, or bemoaned the idea that, the citizenry is just not really super engaged. It's fairly apathetic, right? I've
Mhm.
talked about this numerous times on the podcast and LinkedIn content, especially when we talk about, the annual budget sessions where it's like no one shows up, you know what I mean? And it's like, wait, we're passing a budget with millions and millions of dollars or hundreds of millions or even, a billion plus, depending on the size of the jurisdiction, and you have
Yeah.
such little input from the residents on in that process. But I think what you're showing with this academy and the interest level that you got is that if you're well intentioned as far as crafting a program and marketing it and getting it out there, right, and doing this holistic approach, that there really are people who want to learn more about government. But are we doing enough from the government side to really invite them in or give them avenues to not be apathetic, right? Because lives have changed. The way our day-to-day life is as for for Americans has changed dramatically over the last 50, 60, 70 years, right? I mean, it's like so it's like, is government changing to allow those individuals who want to be more engaged and giving them opportunities to be more engaged, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we do it in a way that's fun and exciting, and it's not like an economics class, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a lecture; it's interactive. Going back to your comment, you get nobody in the room, no public comment for $100 million budget through over 2 public hearings we have to do here in Washington. But you start talking about backyard chickens or a kennel. and you'll have 500 people in chambers.
Insane. It is insane, right? This is like universal across the entire country. I tell you, when I moved to Kansas and then started working as a city man, I'll tell you two things in Kansas blew my mind. Right? It was the back, chickens, backyard
Yeah.
chickens or whatever, and then golf carts on city streets. I was just like
Oh,
blown away by how like huge of an issue it was. But I can kind of hear some people maybe kind of snickering based off my last statement about avenues of engagement, because people are going to say, Joe, what are you talking about? There's now more opportunities than ever for people to get engaged. There's live streaming meetings, and there's social media, and the videos are being recorded and you replay. And yes, to a degree, for sure, that is, I won't dispute that at all. But giving somebody the opportunity to voyeuristically observe what is going on is not the same, because so often these individuals who are voyeuristically observing the process don't feel like they have any say or impact on the process, and they don't understand the process even if they do want to have an impact on the process. And so I think that's what makes the Citizen Academy such an interesting and productive idea.
yeah. I think the social media avenue. People always have the social media avenue and never read the comments ever. Um,
You got to treat it like a
so
celebrity. I just can't
yeah,
read the hate
right.
mail.
So, and people have those, but it's also going back to the issue before about, is it scalable, right? The reason why we wanted to do that one-on-one personal conversational type approach is because it is not social media. It is not, electronic. It is where we are engaging one-on-one. You're looking the person in the eye and you're talking to them like a human being, not pounding away on a keyboard angry at something.
Well, you just brought up a point that triggered something for me to throw out here, and it's such. I've bemoaned and criticized the social media sewer for years. I'm just not a fan of it, and one of the things I've talked about is how in the social media world, or social media sphere, the individuals who are participating in that. In the vitriol and the hate and the toxicity and the complaining, often these individuals, there's other issues at play. I won't go on a rail on that, rant on that or whatnot. But those are individuals that are not really usually fully invested in the community, are the ones that are really trying to make things happen, right? The people who are trying to raise their kids and put food on the tables and be productive members of society, they're not really attracted to that negativity in social media, right? Generally speaking, they don't want to talk or run down the community that they live in. They want to say nice things and have nice things to say. And I think the point I'm trying to get to in a roundabout way here, Jeff, is when you do a Citizens Academy, I I've never done one, and I might just be pulling this out of what, but I think I'm spot on here. You are attracting a quote unquote higher caliber of resident who's truly invested in the community, wants what's best for it. And I think it's just a completely different dynamic.
I do too. I think that not necessarily a higher caliber, but I would say people that are willing to learn and not try to fill the information vacuum with whatever.
That's why
I
this is
think
unfiltered. This is why this is City Manager
yeah, fair enough.
Unfiltered, and I can say that, and you can't because
Yeah, yeah. I think it's people that are they're interested, they're invested, and they want to know why. It's the biggest thing that comes out of the community academy. Government is so weird compared to where most places work, right?
yeah.
They don't understand, the color of money, where the different funds come from. It's restricted. You can't spend sewer rates on a police car, those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
Explaining all that to people and explaining the why we do these things. There's a state law that requires it. There's a federal requirement that something, whatever it is. If people understand the why, they're much more open and willing to listen to what you have to say. But it's like, why, run it like your household. Well, you can't really do that. And explaining to people why that is, I think, is incredibly important and valuable.
Yeah. Well, and you hit on another point that I want to maybe expound on a little, real quick, and that is this idea that human beings, when they are operating in an environment where they're filled with uncertainty or unknowns, or they don't know what's sort of behind the door, their brain has a tendency to plant a a lot of negative seeds and just think the worst of what's going on when it's really not true. And that's why I think what's really good about this work that you guys are doing and all the other communities out there that are doing these citizen academies is, you're pulling the curtains back to say, hey, there's there's nothing going on here, guys.
Right.
This is really how it operates, and we want you to understand how it operates. We're not trying to hide anything. In fact, we wish more people were involved,
Yep.
because at this point in time, it's like, so often we're getting beat up by, traditionally right now on social media, right, by people who are suggesting that we're hiding stuff or there's some sort of corruption behind every corner, and that's not the case at all.
No, it's not. 99.9% of the people I've met throughout my career in government are good people trying to do the right thing. And in this world, I think you're going to get the social media comments. You're going to get, I've had people drive by on the street telling me I was, ruining the town, that kind of thing.
Say
Uh,
they said you're number one, right?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I get it. You have to have a thick skin to be in this business, right? But we're for the vast majority are good people trying to do good work for the community. But we also have a responsibility to show people that, not just tell them.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do here. It's like there are no backroom deals here. Trust me, or don't come see for yourself. You don't have to trust me.
Yeah. So Jeff, I know this episode's getting a little long in the tooth. We're going to start winding it down. I know you've only done it for 1 year, and you're getting ready to start the second season of the Citizens Academy. I'm not sure when this episode's going to get published, but it'll probably be published either right before it starts or right as it's starting. Have you had enough time to really feel like there's been a way to assess the efficacy or the results of the program? I know obviously anecdotally you feel good about it, but what do you feel? What can you say to other city managers out there who might be looking at doing something or they've been thinking about it? I mean, do you feel like is it worth is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, in my opinion, for us, the juice has absolutely been worth the squeeze. We've seen, started off talking a little bit about apathy in the community, which I think a lot of communities suffer from. We've seen a ton of engagement recently. People, sharing their opinions with us, but coming to city events, coming to council meetings, watching
And when
them
and
on.
when and when you say engagement, sorry to step on you, but when you say engagement, you're talking about more than just the 30 or so people who took the session last year, right?
Oh, 100%. We have, again, just anecdotally, we don't have enough data to create a trend line yet, but we've seen more people willing to share comments and perspectives in city council meetings. We've seen an uptick in people contacting City Hall about various issues because they realize, I think, are beginning to realize that we're open to helping solve the problem if there's any way we can.
Are you assigning this in total to the Citizens Academy, or have you guys? We spent the bulk of our time talking about that specific effort. Are there other sort of outreach or community engagement strategies you guys have been deploying that may also be attributed to that success?
I think a couple of them. One, we have a thing quarterly where it's basically an Ask Me Anything, right? It's a AMA called Terrace Talk because alliteration is important.
Of course.
Uh, yeah, and then we have a few other community engagement initiatives. We have the Community Ambassadors program, which is different than the ambassadors created by the Community Academy. It's more communities that, immigrant communities, things like that, that don't necessarily have any contact at all with city government. So finding a trusted partner there that can help communicate our message with them. And the last one, the last major one, I think, we had a financial sustainability task force. So I charged my department heads with coming up with the most government name they could come up with, and that was it. Financial sustainability task force to address some future budget challenges that we have that we need to be proactive and get in front of. But I think a combination of all those things, and then being visible at public events and being approachable, has helped a ton with kind of that. I don't want to say that people trust us 100% right now, but it's helped open up that door to say, come talk to us. We're trying to make our community better, just like you are.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And I think I know the answer to this already just by nature of the profession. But if any other city managers out there are thinking about going down this road and starting their own academy, I assume you would be open door policy for them.
Oh, absolutely. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to share the materials we've developed. And you can take them or customize them for your community however you see fit. But we've done a lot of the work, and I'm happy to share it.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, Jeff, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. You're a great guy. I appreciate you coming on the show. Shout out to Sienna, your staffer, Sienna Spencer Markles. She's been amazing to deal with, to work with, and coordinating this and setting it up. And thank you very much for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thank you. I enjoy listening. Like I said, maybe not to this one, but your other ones for sure.
Well, it took me a long time to get used to hearing my own voice, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Joe Turner, and my guest has been Jeff Niten. He is the city manager for Mountlake Terrace in Washington, up near Seattle. And appreciate you coming on the show. And if you enjoyed the content, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe button. Please make sure you leave a rating review on your platform of choice. And if you are thinking about starting your own sort of citizen academy, don't hesitate to reach out to Jeff. He's got an open door policy. Would love to help you guys and share with you what he's learned outside this podcast. So thank you very much. Catch you next week.